The first point that people need to understand is exactly who is Jeremy Bamber. Now, a lot of people will tell you about his past and where he went to school and some stuff about him. But the critical thing to know about Jeremy Bamber is there's 85 prisoners in British prisons, 85,000 prisoners currently, roughly. Out of those 85,000 prisoners, there's about 50 who have a full life tariff prisoners. So the really bad ones, supposedly, that have done convicted of very terrible crimes. And out of those 50 or so, there's about 10, I mean, I'm not going to go into detail with sort of numbers, but there's about 10 that have received their sentence directly from the Home Secretary. And Jeremy's one of those, and Jeremy's the only one that consistently over a 30-year period, more than 30 years, has said he's innocent. So Jeremy Bamber is a very, very critical guy, because if it ever turned out that he was innocent, it would say something very, very serious about the justice system, the police system, the appeals system, and also the government. And I'll explain why later. So that's who Jeremy Bamber is. He's a really critical person. And I regard him as the most important prisoner in the British justice system for the last 100 years. And a very, very useful person, a very, very, positive story in some ways, not in all aspects.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie. I've always believed that Jeremy was innocent of the crimes he's committed of doing in 1985. I've always thought, not only the state of Sheila's mind that massively goes against her and also proves a lot, I think, but also things like the blood that was congealed in the others, and hers was very, very fresh and still trickling, I believe, which proves that she was obviously shot hours later after the others. Things like also there was 300 fishermen that was out fishing that night, and not one of them saw somebody of Jeremy's size or image going past in the dark or on his way to White House Farm and back at that time in the early hours of the morning. There was a huge route and things he could have took by car, walking or bicycle, and he wasn't spotted leaving his house by any neighbours or any noise and movement or anybody. And also he would have been seen by somebody. It was a summer's evening, somebody would have seen him, and like I say, there was over 300 people fishing and none of them saw him. Interesting. Things like the suicide note that Sheila had written that I've not seen myself, but obviously that's huge evidence, I think. And the silencer that people talk about was never used, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it's any evidence whatsoever. I don't think it was even used or it should even be counted for anything. Also, things like the police statements and the calls, and there was also a call logged from White House Farm to the police at 6:09 a.m, which obviously Jeremy was outside with the police from 3:30ish, so it definitely wasn't him doing that call. Actually makes it pretty impossible that he was even there or anywhere near the site, actually. So to me, I've always believed his innocence. I read the book years and years ago, but I've also watched the film, the documentary film, and I've always thought of his innocence. And, in his letters that he writes and things like that, he's always protested his innocence. And one of the biggest things as well, that he actually passed a lie detecting machine. Now, they are 99.9 point accurate, I think, so that is real big evidence as well. So, it's about time justice was seen on this, and 35 years is a long time and took all his life, really, so it's about time that he was reheard, retried and released. And good luck to you, Jeremy.
My name's Emma Morris, and I'm a supporter of Jeremy Bamber because he spent the last 35 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. I've been asked to talk about one thing that really convinced me that Jeremy's innocent, and for me it's the fact that Sheila was alive inside the house whilst Jeremy was outside with the police. We know that to be fact because the evidence shows it. For example, the gun up against the windowsill that was seen by more than one police officer, the fact the log states that they were communicating with somebody from inside the farm, the amount of time it took them to storm a property that they say showed absolutely no signs of life, the fact that they called for further armed backup to a property showing no signs of life, a call was made coming out of the farm at 6:09 in the morning, hours and hours and hours after everybody in that house was supposed to be dead, if Jeremy was the perpetrator. And Sheila died a long time after everybody else. She had blood coming from her wound, according to a police officer, when they found her. and rigor mortis set in a lot later as well. And I think one document is also really, really telling, and that's the one that states that there is 2 bodies in the kitchen, a female and a male. Now, the police have tried to explain this away by saying that, no, actually there was only one body in the kitchen, but initially Neville was mistaken for a female. So if you play that through for a moment, you would have the police say, one dead male in the kitchen, and the log just presumably paraphrased that to say one dead female, one dead male. And that explains why the log shows 2 bodies when there was actually only one. However, that's not what the log says. The log says one dead male, one dead female, not the other way around. So you can't possibly explain that away in the way that the police have done. Now, dead bodies don't get up and walk on their own, so Sheila was obviously still alive in the kitchen at that point, got up, went upstairs, and committed suicide upstairs, which explains why the police saw blood running from her wound when they found her. Now, of course, Jeremy is outside with the police this whole time, and therefore he could not possibly have killed Sheila. And if he didn't kill Sheila, he didn't kill anybody. And he's innocent, and it's time he came home.
A police log has demonstrated, which was withheld at the time of the trial, that at 5:25 a.m, the firearms team surrounding the farm were in conversation with someone from inside the farm. That's what the log said. Now, how can that be proving Jeremy Bamber's guilt? He was standing 350 yards away at the bottom of the lane since 3:46 in the morning. Now, you might be thinking, well, perhaps they were in conversation with him. Well, that's rubbish. How could they do that? They weren't in conversation with Jeremy. He was standing outside with the police. Rubbish. They were in someone from inside the farm. It could have only have been Sheila, the twins, Daniel or Nicholas, June Bamber, or Neville Bamber. They were the only people in the farm. No one else was seen to enter or leave. And this question of a mysterious third-party murderer is a myth. There's no evidence to support that. That was withheld. Now, if the police are saying to anybody, oh, well, that we were in conversation with Jeremy, why did they withhold it? Why? Should not the jury have a look at that? I mean, that's what juries are there for. They should judge that, not the police.
My name's Yvonne Hartley, an actor's joint administrator and forensic liaison manager on Jeremy's campaign. So why do I believe that Jeremy's innocent? I don't just believe it, I absolutely know it. And how do I know it? Because the evidence proves that he is. Simple as that. We're now in a position to undermine every single aspect of the prosecution case, no matter how big and no matter how small. One issue that is of vital importance, as far as I'm concerned, is the silencer issue. The jury were told that of the silencer evidence alone, that they could convict Jeremy. But now we're in a position to be able to show that there wasn't a silencer, there were 2. Both recovered from the scene, both with different contaminants that were amalgamated together to create the impression that there was a single one. Now, not only is this a red herring because there was no silencer involved in the case, but it was also used to try to put forward the theory that the mantel shelf under the Ogram became scratched by a silencer being attached to the rifle during the struggle with Neville in the kitchen. The Crown needed to do that to associate Jeremy with the scene. But we can now show, without any question, that there were no scratch marks present on the 7th of August. And we can also show who made them, when they were made, and how they made them. And this single issue undermines Jeremy's conviction. Thank you. I'll see you all very, very soon. Bye.
Hi everybody, I just wanted to let you know why I think Jeremy's innocent. As you probably know, we had a caravan on O.C. Road site during the 1980s and at the time of the incident. We were probably actually on there at the night, and so we saw a lot of Jeremy. My son Jamie was was what is now known, basically, as Jeremy's first follower. For me, the evidence of the 3 telephone calls proves without a shadow of a doubt that Jeremy is innocent, but we to be fair, knew Jeremy was innocent altogether. He wasn't the kind of person that would have done anything like that. He adored his family, got on extremely well with his father. He was very shy, he's kind and hard-working. But the evidence of the letters proves beyond all doubt, in my mind, that Jeremy is absolutely innocent.
In 1985, I was living in Tollesbury, and my in-laws lived in Tolshant Darcy, next door to the farm secretary, in fact. And the farm itself is in a lane that runs off the road between the 2 villages. On the 7th of August, my parents, who lived in Malden, brought my sister down to see us, as it was her last day in the UK before going back to New Zealand. And they told us of all the police activity around the entrance of the lane and asked us if we knew what was going on. We said, no idea, but maybe it was smuggling, as, you know, all the creeks around there had been a smuggler's paradise for years, and in those days it tended to be drugs. That evening on the news, we saw the full horror of what actually happened. And in October 1986, the time of the trial, we were busy with a young family and I was studying for a degree, and we didn't pay a lot of close attention to the trial itself and just assumed that as Jeremy was found guilty, that must have been the case. A couple of years later, we moved to the Midlands, and then 15 years ago to France. But we continued to visit relatives in Darcy, and from there we'll go down to Tollesbury, perhaps to buy bread or to meet with friends or whatever. And so many times when we passed that lane, we would say, wonder what ghosts are rattling around in there, wonder who lives there now. Back at the beginning of this year, we saw the programme advertised, and so I googled on the case to remind myself of it. When I read that the cousins had been there 3 days later and had miraculously found the moderator, whoa, light bulb moment, I turned to my husband and said, I don't think he did it. So, read up more on it. When I read of the sea wall, I thought, I don't see how that's possible. We used to go up onto that seawall in Goldhanger when the girls were young, and in fact it ripped the balloon tyres on the pushchair. The surface was so uneven, and to get there from Head Street you've got to go down Head Street, then down Fish Street, across the recreation ground, up onto the seawall. That in itself would probably take 2 to 3 minutes on a bicycle, let alone get into White House Farm in 10 minutes. I know that the group in general don't think much of the programme because of who wrote the book that that the programme was based on, but our feelings were that in the programme it didn't portray Anne in a good light at all.
I think when I first started looking at the case, because I look at a lot of alleged miscarriages of justice, and the first thing I do, I look at it from the point of view that the conviction was right, that Jeremy was guilty. But then I started reading, and it was, I don't know, pretty soon became absolutely crystal clear to me. I thought not only did he not kill his family, it would have been impossible for him to have killed his family. You know, the more I looked at it, and the more evidence I saw, and it was like, I don't know, it's like the building bricks, if you like. One kept being knocked down, and then another one kept, was knocked down, and it just went on and on and on. And I think, in a way, it's become political. I think you could almost say he's a political prisoner, because for Jeremy to be cleared, and when, touch wood, when he is cleared, I think people will say, how can it have gone on for so long? How can this weight of evidence have been ignored for so long? I think it'll be almost, obviously not on the same scale. There was 96 people who died at Hillsborough, but it reminds me of Hillsborough. Not so much, something went wrong, and then this massive cover-up.
And the altering of all the statements and
Absolutely.
All that, which we know happened now after
Absolutely.
20 odd years, and it's, the same for Jeremy. We've got statements that have been crossed out and altered.
Absolutely.
We know that.
Absolutely. So, it's now become, I want to see Jeremy out. I want to see him home because it's, and start putting this terrible wrong right. 31 years, it's just
unbelievable.
Yeah.
There are just so many. But I think my son said the main thing that I talk about is definitely the police cover-up and the CPS cover-up. Mainly, I'll use the issue of the photographs for one specific thing. Why, if they've got nothing to hide, have they lied repeatedly, different lies? It's not the same lie all the time. And what they have released eventually directly contradicts what the prosecution used at trial, and if there isn't anything to hide, if they're not lying, if they're not covering something up, what's the problem with releasing them to the defence? I don't see, why 35 years later the defence are still fighting to get just the photographs, let alone everything else. And that alone to me, if the jury, well, I doubt it would even have made it to trial, to be honest. If everything had been given to the defence, I highly doubt that they could even have brought charges. Well, they wouldn't have brought charges because Jeremy's innocent, let alone take it to trial and then find him guilty. There's just no reasonable person.
I am convinced that Jeremy Bamber did not receive a fair trial. The reason I say this is because we know that masses of evidence was never revealed in court. Back in 1986, during his trial, and for 34 years since, the police have failed to disclose to Bamber's legal team hundreds of items of evidence. I wrote to the Essex Chief Constable, Stephen Kavanagh, asking him to reveal this non-disclosed evidence. I listed some of the hundreds of items that had been suppressed and denied to the defence team. The reply from his spokesperson did not deny that this evidence existed. What the spokesman said, and I quote, was that Essex police were comfortable that all relevant evidence had been disclosed. So the police have outrageously abrogated to themselves the right to determine what evidence is relevant and to suppress and withhold that which they deem is not relevant. This goes against a basic fundamental principle of British justice, which is that a person's defence team have a right to see all the evidence. I'm now urging the Home Secretary to press the police for a full disclosure of all these hundreds of items of evidence, and also to push for a retrial. Until this is done, we cannot say that Jeremy Bamber's conviction is safe. Indeed, all of us who love justice and who want to see a criminal justice system which has public trust and confidence, all of us must demand that the full evidence be revealed by the police. Without that, justice is not done.